There is something particularly powerful about an African-inspired living room when it is allowed to breathe. It does not need to be crowded with pattern. It does not need to announce itself with color. And it certainly does not need to turn African design into a collection of obvious decorative objects. Instead, the most successful spaces often begin with something remarkably simple: a quiet architectural envelope, natural materials, comfortable furniture, and plenty of light, and then allow African craftsmanship, texture, pattern, and art to gradually give the room its identity. That is exactly what makes these living rooms so compelling. At first glance, many of them feel unmistakably coastal. The white walls, timber ceilings, open doors, woven furniture, natural rugs, and views toward the ocean create an atmosphere of relaxed seaside living. But look a little closer, and another layer begins to emerge: carved wooden tables, handcrafted vessels, African sculpture, geometric textiles, traditional patterns translated into cushions and artwork, dark woods against pale upholstery, and earthy shades of black, ochre, terracotta, brown, and deep red. The result is not simply a coastal interior with African accessories. It is a conversation between two design traditions, and that distinction is important.
I love you in the slow sip of morning tea, the curl of steam on your lips, the way your fingers cradle the cup like it is something precious, like you were practicing, for the way you hold my face. You are the calm room inside my storm mind, the cool stone under my bare feet on a hot, impatient day. When you look at me, time folds like fabric between gentle hands, and suddenly there is nowhere to rush to, nothing urgent except the next breath we share. I love you, even in your silence, especially there where your fears hide in the corners of your chest. I wanna sit with them, name them softly, stroke their dark hair until they fall asleep. I love you in the glow of late evening baths, water sliding over your shoulders, purling on your skin, like the world is blessing you.
And then we come to one of the most recognizable elements in these spaces: the textiles. The cushions introduce some of the strongest African visual language in the rooms. Black and ochre geometric patterns, terracotta, deep red, gold, linear motifs, repeated symbols, hand-woven looking textures. Some cushions are bold enough to immediately attract attention, while others are quieter and work almost like supporting notes. This is an important approach. Instead of covering an entire room in African patterns, use patterns strategically. A neutral sofa can become the perfect backdrop for 3 or 4 carefully selected cushions. One strong textile can be enough. A single frame textile artwork can become the focal point of an otherwise quiet wall. A patterned rug can define an entire seating area. The goal is not to make every surface
I
compete.
trade stories
The goal is to create moments of visual rhythm.
futures we have not
Notice the
met yet.
repetition. There is also a subtle
Our
design
children
technique
or
happening throughout these
gardens
rooms.
or
Repetition.
old age on
The
a
same
shaded
earthy colors
veranda.
appear in different places.
Feet touching under the
Ochre
table.
may begin in a cushion
Shift to check.
and reappear in a ceramic vessel. Dark brown may appear in the coffee table and then return in the ceiling beams.
Listen
Black may appear in artwork,
to the spaces
sculpture,
between these words.
pottery, and furniture. This
That
creates
soft,
cohesion.
rushing sound.
The room feels intentional because the colors are not
That is how
isolated,
I feel.
they travel. That is one of the secrets behind a
When you breathe
sophisticated
next to me.
interior. You don't necessarily need matching
I
furniture.
do not need big
You need
promises.
relationships between the objects.
Golden
When the same tones
decorations
appear naturally throughout the
or
room,
perfect days.
everything begins to
Give me
belong
this.
together.
Your tired eyes, your undone hair, your voice half falling asleep on my shoulder. Give me your doubts, your almost cries, your unfinished sentences. I will meet you there again and again, like a tide choosing the same beloved shore. So when I say I love you, I am not throwing petals at your feet. I am placing oceans between your hands, inviting you to keep them as calm as you wish, as wild as you are. Stay here with me in this slow blue moment. Nothing to fix, nothing to prove, just your heartbeat, my breath, and the soft truth that I love you exactly as you are right now.
Another detail worth paying attention to is the coffee table.
Right now.
In many of these living rooms, the coffee table is not a delicate contemporary piece. Instead, it has presence. Some are substantial carved wooden tables with turned legs or traditional detailing. Others have a simple rectangular form, but are made from dark, richly textured wood. This is important because the coffee table sits at the center of the seating arrangement. It becomes the visual and functional anchor of the room. And when the surrounding furniture is relatively understated, a beautifully crafted wooden table can introduce an immediate sense of heritage. This is where African design can feel especially powerful. The piece does not have to literally depict Africa. It can simply communicate the value of craftsmanship, the irregularity of natural wood, the evidence of hand carving, the weight of the material, the sense that the object was made to last. Those qualities give the room an emotional dimension that mass-produced furniture often struggles to provide. Texture is doing the heavy lifting. Perhaps the most important lesson across these living rooms is texture. Because the color palette is relatively restrained, texture becomes essential. Look at the woven rugs, the baskets, the rattan chairs, the carved timber, the pottery, the linen-like upholstery, the patterned cushions, the roughness of natural fibers, the polished surfaces of ceramic vessels, the grain of wood. Every material contributes a different tactile quality. And when all of those materials are brought together, the room becomes rich without becoming visually chaotic. This is a principle worth remembering. A neutral room does not have to be boring. It simply needs enough variation. A cream sofa beside a smooth black vessel feels different from a cream sofa beside
small ways. The way she paused before smiling, as if checking whether joy was allowed. The way he breathed deeper when the room felt calm, as if his body finally believed it was home. At night, the lamps glowed low, not to impress, just enough to be kind. They shared stories without performing them, dreams without explaining them, pain without asking for repair. And in that space between the drum on the wall and the ocean outside, something ancient recognized, something familiar. Love, they realized, wasn't fireworks, it was alignment, it was rest, it was the feeling of being seen without being studied, held without being owned. Some evenings they didn't touch at all, they just existed in the same room. Two lives breathing in rhythm. Other nights, hands found hands slow and certain, as if guided by memory, older than both of them. The ocean watched, the house listened, and the music soft.
One of the strongest ideas running through these rooms is the use of white as a canvas. White shiplap walls appear again and again, but they never feel sterile because the architecture is doing much of the work. The horizontal boards create subtle rhythm across the walls, while the exposed timber beams introduce warmth and structure overhead. This is a beautiful lesson in contrast. When the walls are quiet, the ceiling can become architectural. When the upholstery is pale and understated, the artwork and textiles can carry more visual weight. And when the flooring and rugs remain natural, the room gains warmth without requiring a large amount of color. This is why these interiors feel sophisticated rather than busy. The background is restrained. The character comes from the materials. And that is one of the easiest principles to borrow for your own home. You do not need to introduce 10 different colors to create an African-inspired interior. Begin with a calm foundation, then let craftsmanship provide the personality, the beauty of natural contrast. Now look at the furniture. Across these spaces, the sofas are generally light, soft, and comfortable. Cream, ivory, and warm white upholstery create a sense of ease, but surrounding those sofas are pieces that are much heavier visually. Dark carved coffee tables, traditional wooden consoles, black ceramic vessels, woven baskets, handcrafted stools, sculptural objects. This contrast is extremely effective. Imagine these same rooms with every piece of furniture in the same pale color. They would still be beautiful, but much of their character would disappear. The darker elements create visual anchors. They give the eye somewhere to stop, and they make the pale upholstery feel even lighter. This is a particularly useful principle in Afro modern interiors. Contrast does not always mean color. It can mean light against dark, smooth against rough, soft against hard, new against handmade, and refined against rustic. That is what gives a room depth.
Just enough to remind me I'm not alone in this moment. You sit, the cushions take your weight like they've been waiting, like this was always your shape. Some loves announce themselves, this one didn't. It arrived slowly, like light finding the room, one corner at a time. Outside the wind moves through the palms, the way memory moves through the body, without asking permission. If we leave tomorrow, this house will still hold us in the grain of the wood, in the quiet between waves. And if we stay, it won't trap us. It will simply open its doors and say, take your time. Come closer. Yeah. Just like that.
So if you wanted to recreate the essence of these rooms without copying them literally, where would you begin? Start with the architecture or the background. Keep the larger surfaces calm. White, warm ivory, sand, or another natural neutral can provide the foundation. Then introduce timber, not necessarily everywhere, a ceiling beam, a wooden console, a substantial coffee table, a carved side table. Then bring in natural fibers, a woven rug, a basket, rattan seating, linen or textured upholstery. After that, introduce African craftsmanship through carefully selected pieces, one large vessel, a sculpture, a textile artwork, a collection of handmade pottery, and finally, bring in pattern through textiles. Cushions are often the easiest place to begin because they can introduce strong African geometry without permanently changing the architecture. The key is to let each material have room to breathe. The deeper design philosophy. But beyond all of these individual elements, there is a much deeper reason these rooms work. They feel connected to place. The timber responds to the coastal environment. The woven materials echo natural fibers. The plants reinforce the tropical setting. The ocean becomes part of the composition. And the African elements introduce history, craftsmanship, and cultural character. Nothing feels completely disconnected from the environment. And that is perhaps the most meaningful lesson we can take from these interiors. African-inspired design does not have to mean reproducing a traditional African room. It can mean taking the values of African craftsmanship, material honesty, handmade objects, patterns, symbolism, natural textures, and respect for artisanship, and allowing those values to live comfortably inside a contemporary home. That is when the design begins to feel timeless, not because it follows a trend, but because it has something deeper underneath it, a connection to material, a connection to nature, a connection to craftsmanship, and ultimately, a connection to culture. These living rooms show us that luxury does not always have to be louder. Sometimes it is the quiet white wall, the hand-carved table, the woven basket sitting naturally beside the sofa, the patterned cushion that catches your eye, the sculpture standing quietly in the corner, the warm glow of a lamp after sunset, and beyond the open doors, the ocean. That combination of coastal serenity and African soul is what gives these spaces their extraordinary character.